9. 9 players, most of which in the last 3 or 4 days. This may be the hardest YouTube video I ever make. No matter how hard you do or don't want to believe it, baseball is a business, and it is about money. It's about who has it and who doesn't, and those who have money have an easier time winning championships, such as the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. And as much as I am in immense emotional distress and pain right now, I consider myself a professional when it comes to matters like this as far as handling myself. I plan to broadcast professionally one day, and I cannot imagine how Pat Hughes is going to do his job tonight for the Cubs. But I'm going to do my best to give you fine people who clicked on this video my best thoughts, the straightest answers that I can give right now, my best analysis on what just happened. Jock Peterson, Andrew Chafin, Ryan Tepera, Craig Kimbrell, Javier Baez, Trevor Williams, Chris Bryant, Jake Marisnick, Anthony Rizzo. 9 solid, good, decent ball players traded away across the country. Some trades were good, some trades were not. And as far as the Rizzo deal goes, I will get into that. But we are going to go in chronological order to kind of dissect how things connected and kind of flowed into each other. Because if you look carefully, there was a pattern and kind of indicators on what would happen. So the first trade that happened was Jock Peterson getting traded to the Braves for first baseman Bryce Ball. I think this was a very smart trade, and if you have been a Cubs fan for even a few years, you are a big fan of Kyle Schwarber, who actually got traded himself to the Red Sox, which is kind of surprising. Peterson was on a 1-year deal. He was kind of a filler to fill in the left field hole that was made by Kyle Schwarber when he got signed by the Nationals. Peterson, I truly did like Jock Peterson. He's a great clubhouse guy. He bonded with the guys very well. He crushed homers in spring training. He had a wrist injury for a while, started off the year slow, but then got a little bit better. He was a little bit underwhelming as far as his numbers, but he was a good guy to have, and he was on a 1-year deal. So guys who are on the last years of their deals or only on a 1-year deal, they are prime candidates for trades. And Peterson got traded for a solid first baseman in the Braves organization, Bryce Ball. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, oh God, first baseman? Rizzo's a first baseman. Now, at this point, I thought to myself, Rizzo is not a spring chicken. He is getting older, he is having back issues, and his numbers are going down. And we also do not have a full-fledged first baseman in the organization really anywhere that I'm aware of. I've gone to 2 Iowa Cubs games this summer. Nick Martini played first base in one of those games, and as much as I like Martini, he's not a first baseman. This was a good trade because, again, Peterson on a 1-year deal, and Bryce Ball in a few years will be our new first baseman if he goes on the trajectory that he's going. He's got a high power bat. He has some contact issues, but he's a lot like Rizzo is in a lot of aspects of his game. And I think Ball was a good pickup for a guy with only 1 year left on his deal in Peterson. So that trade, good trade. That was the first one we did. I agree with that one. Next trade, the Chafin trade to the A's. I liked this one as well, and here's why. Andrew Chafin was a fan favorite when he was here. He was the sheriff. He wore that failed starter shirt, which was hilarious. He was just a down-to-earth guy. He bought a truck from a fan for like $2,000 to drive around the city, and he gave him some tickets. He's just a super cool guy. And he was a key part of our bullpen. But the return we got for him, I believe, was fair. Mainly the outfielder we got, Greg Deichmann. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Deichmann. We got him and Daniel Palencia in the deal. Now, Greg Deichmann is, from what I have read, a very solid outfielder. He hits around 300 in AAA. He has great power numbers. He was a bit of a concern as far as strikeout numbers last year, but he has cut down his strikeout percentage by double digits, which is very encouraging. And I believe that we could see Deichmann as soon as the end of this year. As far as Daniel Palencia goes, he has not had a very big sample size, not a great ERA in a small sample size again, but he's only 21 and he's got a high upside. So the main piece of this deal is getting Deichmann. I would have been satisfied with him alone with Chafin. So I think the Chafin deal was a good one. Now here's where we get into the bad trades. The first White Sox deal, Ryan Tepera for Bailey Horn. Now, Bailey Horn is a very interesting case. He was a semi-high draft pick out of Auburn, I believe, and he's got very good velocity, but velocity doesn't matter if your location is terrible. Horn is one of those low-risk, high-reward guys that the Cubs just love to sign in the bullpen, and even as starters. You can't do that with pitchers, all right? Like, you've got to have some semblance of pitchers. You can't roll the dice, low-risk, high-reward. That's all the Cubs have done the last few years. And I just have a feeling that Horn is not going to bring what we want to the table. I don't think he was worth Tepera. Now, again, I could be wrong, but this is really a roll of the dice by the front office with this Tepera trade for Bailey Horn. I do not like this trade. Here's where it starts to get painful. At the time I am recording this, it has been about 27 hours since my favorite athlete of all time and the captain, Anthony Rizzo, was traded to the New York Yankees, which greatly surprised me and everyone else because Rizzo was linked a lot to the Red Sox in trade talks. That's where he was drafted. That's where he fought his Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer diagnosis when he had that. And the Red Sox organization treated him very well. And then he went to the Yankees, which makes no sense until you look at the Yankees' left-handed hitting numbers. Before Rizzo was traded to the Yankees got Joey Gallo from the Rangers. Joey Gallo has more home runs against left-handed pitching than the entire Yankees roster has against left-handed pitching. I believe the numbers were 24-22 in favor of Gallo. So the Yankees are looking for left-handed bats. And when I first saw this trend, I'm like, wait a minute. Don't the Yankees have Luke Voit? Why do they need Rizzo for Luke Voit? Luke Voit has been injured a lot this year, which I was not aware of. But Voit is starting to come back, but it looks like Rizzo will be the everyday starter out there at first. I believe Voit can play other positions. I don't know. I'm not a Yankees expert. But the return we got for Anthony Rizzo is not a bad return. It's not great, but it's not bad. We got an outfielder, Kevin Alcantara. I apologize. Kevin Alcantara, I believe is how you pronounce it. And then right-handed pitcher, Alexander Vizcaino. Now, Alcantara is the best part of what we got. He has a very high upside. He's a 19-year-old kid. He's not very bulked up right now. He's more of a wiry frame kind of guy, but if he can put some muscle on, he can be one of those like wiry power hitters and can be an amazing player. But it's going to take him a little bit to get there. And as far as Alexander Vizcaino, one thing my dad said is the Yankees are not known for developing pitchers. And Alexander Vizcaino is a good representation of that. He's a question mark, a lot like Bailey Horn was in the White Sox trade. Vizcaino's been hurt a lot, various injuries. He's got a mid-4 ERA in the low minors, which would translate to like an ERA in the 6s or 7s in the majors if he's lucky. But the Alcantara part of the trade was good, but here is where you need to kind of go beyond the numbers and on paper stuff. Anthony Rizzo has been a Cub for half of my life. He has been the face, the heart, and the soul of the Cubs organization. He won us a World Series after he was part of the 100-loss team. The only two Cub members on that World Series team that were part of the 100-loss team in 2012, I believe, was the year when the Cubs lost 100-plus games. The only two members on that team that were part of the World Series team were Travis Wood and Anthony Rizzo. Wood retired a few years back. I really miss Travis Wood. But Rizzo asked for a contract extension at the beginning of the year, and the Cubs didn't give it to him. Rizzo wanted about $19-20 million a year. And I can understand the front office's position on why they didn't re-sign him. Because when you look at re-signing a guy, you take a look at where all of the highest-ranking players at that position are as far as salary-wise in the league. Freddie Freeman was probably looked at. Joey Votto was probably looked at. But the Cubs just didn't want to pay Rizzo what he was asking. They probably would have been closer to a $17, $16 million deal, maybe even 15. But there are some times in baseball where you just got to look beyond the pure number standpoint. You've just got to look at your clubhouse and how a guy just brings a team and even a whole city together. Anthony Rizzo was the Cubs. He went through everything in the 9 years he was with the team. 100-win season, 100-loss season, a World Series, won Gold Gloves. I believe he won a Silver Slugger. A few All-Star appearances. He saw so many Cubs come and go. He saw Castro come and go. He saw Castellanos come and go. But it just needs to get to the point where if you have a guy as impactful as Rizzo, my dad and I talked about this earlier today, he is so much like a J.J. Watt or who was the other guy we brought up? Or a Freddie Freeman with the Braves, who just know how to connect to their teams and their cities so well, and they're just decent human beings. And you just need to look at your situation and say, look, we need to bend to you because you make this team great. You help develop the younger guys. You bring a culture to this clubhouse that is wanted. You bring fans into our ballpark and make us money. So as a return on that investment, we will give you more money. That is what the Cubs should have done with Rizzo. And they traded him away to the Yankees like he was nothing. The only place that I would have disliked for Rizzo to go more would be anywhere else in the division. I would have liked him going to the Astros better than the Yankees, because at least Rizzo could go and start changing the perception of the Houston Astros with Dusty Baker. I commend Dusty Baker for what he took on with the Astros, but that is a conversation for another day. Moving on to the second White Sox deal involving Craig Kimbrell. I actually liked this trade. The Cubs gave Kimbrell to the Sox in exchange for Nick Madrigal and Cody Hewer, a right-handed pitcher. Madrigal is a second baseman. Now, Nick Madrigal is a very high-ranked prospect in all of baseball and in the White Sox organization. I will bring up that he does have a torn hamstring and will not play for the rest of this year, but he will be ready for spring training next year unless his rehab is set back, which I don't think will happen. But I really do like this trade because Madrigal is a very good return, and with Baez gone, Madrigal will likely fill a middle infield spot next year if he develops enough in spring training and in his rehab. And he's just solid all around. He's a very solid all-around player. Cody Hewer, that's Codiheuer, Cody Hewer. He's been in the majors not too long, a small sample size, but he did very well in the 60-game season last year. He had an ERA in the 2s, I think. Maybe in the 1s. I can't quite remember what I read, but he had a few saves as well. He hasn't done great this year. But the funny thing with relievers, kind of like Tepera. Tepera didn't do very well last year, but he did very well this year. And won NL Reliever of the Month, Tepera did. So I could see Hewer turning it around. I do like the White Sox deal with Kimbrell. Now we get to stuff that happens just hours ago that I'm still trying to process. Javier Baez and Trevor Williams were sent to the New York Mets for one guy. Pete Crow Armstrong, a center fielder. And this one just makes no sense to me. Pete Crow Armstrong was a first-round pick in the draft last year, and he has very good speed, very good contact, and good defensive skills. He has the potential to be a great, great player. He really does. However, he is recovering from shoulder surgery, which could permanently tamper his numbers, at least as far as his contact and maybe his average a little bit. But I'm not saying that Crow Armstrong is a bad player. He's a very good player. But he is not worth El Mago and then Williams. He's just not worth that. Baez did ask for $200 million extension this offseason. Was it this offseason? It might have been $180 over the offseason. I think the $200 million extension was a recent one. But do I think Javier Baez is worth $200 million? No. He's still fairly undisciplined at the plate, and he's had a lot of errors this year. However, if Javi said, hey, I want $180 million over 6 years, that I would have given to him. $30 million a year for a guy like Javi, I would give that to him. He still has things to work on, but I just don't think the Cubs got a good return in this deal. And then we go to the Giants deal with Chris Bryant. I read a report somewhere that said that the Cubs got Lamont Wade Jr. and Joey Bart from the Giants. I was severely misled on that front. The Cubs got outfielder Alexander Canario and right-handed pitcher Caleb Killian for Bryant, who are the 9th and 30th prospects in the Giants organization, respectively, if I remember that right from the article I read. This deal makes no sense to me. Half of these deals, I'm fully convinced that the Cubs just gave away the core so they didn't have to pay them, and they can manipulate the contracts of minor leaguers like they did with Horner earlier this year. That's what they did with Bryant. That's why Bryant was around this year, because they manipulated his service time, which is what they did with Horner, and the Cubs just have no money to give right now, which is where I'll go with the Marisnick deal, which is the last point I need to touch up on. But as far as the Giants deal, the Cubs got absolutely fleeced. They should have just asked for Joey Bart or Lamont Wade Jr. from the Giants. I believe Wade is an outfielder. Okay, I don't know why I thought he was a pitcher, but Wade is an outfielder and Joey Bart is a catcher. Joey Bart is a very highly acclaimed minor league catcher. He will be an all-star one day. Joey Bart will be an all-star one day. The Cubs should have gone for him with the potential of not re-signing Contreras and then our catcher nightmare that we've had this year with everybody getting hurt. But we gave away our MVP, Rookie of the Year, All-Star Bryant for ho-hum prospects, in my opinion. And that just wasn't the move. And then we get to the Marisnick deal. The Padres got Marisnick, and we got right-handed pitcher Anderson Espinoza in return. And Espinoza, he's nothing to write home about. He's not terrible, but he's not great. He's a mediocre pitcher, but he just had Tommy John surgery, which could throw his entire dynamic off. And I feel personally I'm a bit hard on pitchers who've had Tommy John surgery, but there are just cases where some pitchers just never pitch the same. And their numbers just aren't the same as they once were before the surgery. But Jake Marisnick, last night after the Rizzo trade, I hung out with my friend Sam for a few hours. We're both huge Cubs fans, and we just kind of sat around talking about our fondest Rizzo memories, because Rizzo was the one that hurts most for me. Everybody else just happened so fast that I'm still kind of in shell shock with Bryant and Baez. But as far as Jake Marisnick goes, Sam and I were talking about how he didn't get nearly enough playing time with the Cubs. He's a great, well, I think great's a bit of a strong word there. He's a decent contact hitter, and he can play all three outfield positions very well defensively. He was a defensive upgrade for sure, and he had a $4 million option, I believe, for next year, and the Cubs turned it down. So I don't know what they're thinking. The Cubs are just throwing all of their bets on ho-hum, mediocre, shot-in-the-dark pitchers for a lot of these. The Bryce Ball acquisition was good. The Dykman acquisition was good. But as a whole, I am very disappointed in the return that we got. And now I'm going to bring up a few things because, again, I'm not a front office manager. I'm not an expert. I give you guys my educated opinion on this stuff. I'm not a professional. I try and conduct myself like a professional, no matter how hard it is, especially on a day like today. I'm not an expert, but when Theo Epstein was still with the Cubs, he did everything in his power to keep the core together, and my dad said it best. Theo saw the writing on the wall, and he got out of Dodge. He knew that this team would absolutely crumble to the ground because the team doesn't have any money to give anyone. The Ricketts need to sell the team. They don't have the money to keep a team running anymore. And I do not condone this at all, but that I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of death threats and a lot of people waiting outside the houses of Jed Hoyer and the Ricketts family. And I do not encourage or condone that behavior at all, but Cubs fans just lost the entire family today. Everything that makes us who we are is gone. All three members of our offensive core are gone. The three-headed monster of Tepera, Chafe, and Kimbrel in the bullpen is gone. And a few other solid pieces like Marisnik, and I don't want to call Williams a solid piece because he was meh, but that's an arm that we don't have anymore. But all of them are now gone. And Peterson was a nice addition to have, and he's gone. But the big question is, I'm going to pose two questions here, is who out of who's left between Contreras, Wisdom, and Hayward are the Cubs going to keep next year? The Cubs are probably going to see Hayward as an old dog that they won't re-sign again, which is unfortunate because Hayward plays Gold Glove defense, and his offensive shortcomings are going to be what ends up forcing him into an earlier retirement than he'd like. Wilson Contreras is what we have left right now. Nico Horner is hurt. I think he has a strained quadricep or something. He has a strained something, and he's on the injured list. So the Cubs lost their entire infield in 24 hours. Bryant Rizzo Baez got traded. Horner on the IL for God knows how long. The question is, who are we going to have left at the end of this year? Who are we going to re-sign? I don't see us letting Contreras walk because we don't have any other viable catchers in our organization, unless we still have Miguel Amaya. I'm not sure if we traded him or not. It's just all a whirlwind right now. But I truly believe we'll re-sign Contreras. We're going to build around Horner. They might see Patrick Wisdom as too old because even though he's in the running for Rookie of the Year, he's going to be 30 next month. He's a 30-year-old rookie, which is crazy with how long he's been in the minor leagues. And then just everybody else on the team who we have left. I mean, we have Rafael Ortega in center field. We have Ian Happ. I've never been a huge Ian Happ fan. I think he's hot and cold. But the other question is, who is going to step up and fill that role that Rizzo had? Now, I'm not saying that Rizzo can be replaced at all. He can't be. But who is going to step up for the remainder of this year to get the Cubs to winter? The Cubs just need to get to the winter right now. And I honestly do think that the prime candidate for who is going to lead this team right now will be Jason Hayward. Because Hayward, despite his offensive shortcomings, he has been a stud defensively in right field. He's won multiple Gold Gloves with the Cubs. If Mookie Betts didn't exist last year, Hayward would have won the Gold Glove in right field. Hayward has been at this for a long time. He's a seasoned veteran. He gave that famous rain delay speech in Game 7 of the World Series to help get the Cubs over that hump. I truly believe that Hayward will be a big leader going forward for the rest of this year, because he might say to himself, like, everybody I used to play with is gone. I'm going to finish out this year and retire, but I'm going to do it. the right way. I can see Hayward doing that. I think Contreras can be that, but I think it's going to be Hayward right now. Hayward is going to be kind of the leader for this team right now. But Contreras, I do believe, can step up to that. I believe Nico has the potential to do that, but not for a while. I think the leaders of this team are going to be Hayward and Contreras for the time being. As far as everything else that happened around baseball, I think the huge blockbuster trade was Scherzer and Turner to the Dodgers in exchange for Keibert Ruiz and then another big prospect that I forget the name of off the top of my head. But I believe that was a very good trade because the Dodgers get to be in contention now and the Nationals get to rebuild for later. As I previously mentioned, the Nationals also traded Schwarber to the Red Sox. The Red Sox are actually looking into making Schwarber a first baseman, which could be very interesting. I'm very curious to see how that goes. I think Schwarber can do it. It might take him a little time, but I really do think he can do it. Eduardo Escobar went from the Diamondbacks to the Brewers, which is going to absolutely suck because the Brewers are already in first and they're just solidifying their position. Starling Marte went to the A's along with Andrew Chafin. The A's are big buyers right now. They are in the second wild card spot right now, I believe, and they're just trying to solidify their position because unless the Astros start to tank, it looks like that the Athletics are going to have to fight for that second wild card spot because I believe the Rays are in that first wild card spot right now. I don't know. I don't know American League very well. But as far as the Yankees go, I mean, they got Rizzo, they got Gallo, so they're very focused on having better left-handed batting against left-handed pitching. A majority of the Cubs gear that I own is now obsolete within a span of a few days. I even got a Peterson shirt at the beginning of this year. But I'm going to have to do an overhaul on my wardrobe going back to school. So that's pretty much all I've got. I feel like I did pretty well during that without losing my cool too much. Be nice to Cubs fans right now, guys. This is... I'll end with this. I have never seen or heard of anything as big of a collapse in the roster as the Cubs had in the last few days. Our entire core is gone. All of the useful arms in our bullpen are gone. And I don't think Cubs fans know what it means to be a Cubs fan right now. And I don't think we will know for the foreseeable future. But I do believe that the front office really did try to set us up best for success. I can understand the tough position that Jed Hoyer was put in this year, taking up the mantle from Theo Epstein. And I don't blame Hoyer for a majority of this. I blame him for some, but I mainly blame just the Ricketts for not wanting to spend money on people. I think the Ricketts need to sell the team. I don't think they will recover from this in the eyes of the Cubs fan base. I really don't think they will. And regardless of how hard this is going to be, I still want to work for the Cubs. I still want everything and anything to do with them. And I will still wear Cubs gear with my head held high and proud of what we have left and what we have to look forward to, because we did get some very good prospects during this trade cycle. I think we could have done better, but I feel like our outfield's future is very bright with the pieces we got, along with Rafael Ortega and possibly Ian Happ if he figures out how to be consistent. And then having Nico Horner and then Nick Madrigal in the middle infield would be awesome. We got David Bodie, who can be at third, and Bryce Ball, who could fill in a void at first. Hopefully Patrick Wisdom is a part of the team's future for at least the next several seasons. We still have Kyle Hendricks in the starting rotation. We're grooming Tristan Thompson and Justin Steele to be starters, which I'm very excited about. I bet that one of them pitches tonight, because I believe the starting matchup for tonight, the game might already be going by the time I have this video up, but the starting matchup tonight, I believe, was supposed to be Trevor Williams versus John Lester. Williams got dealt to the Mets, and Lester got dealt to the Cardinals. That's another crappy thing about today. Lester went to the Cardinals from the Nationals, so that's fun. I am going to go turn on the TV and edit this video and cheer for my Cubbies. Thank you guys so much for watching, and go Cubbies. Peace out.